And welcome back to Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the late night podcast for the website cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. If you're paying attention, episode 64, we're on episode 64. If you're paying attention, you might have heard the audio go from, for the theme song, go from like generally quiet and then just get higher. And that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes I don't see how low it is, or I turn it down because when I do a little test before I start recording. That's just what, and then I do, oh, turn it down. Sorry. If you're watching the video, you are seeing me sit in a shirt that I've never worn before on camera. It is a yoga shirt. I did yoga yesterday. Then I slept in the shirt because I didn't sweat. It's a yoga at home. This is very easy. It's a nice little hour after a hard day of working out. And then I slept in it, and then I took a shower after the gym this morning, and then I put it back on. Because that's what you do. Welcome back in. It's been a long week of shows. And I don't know if I have a story. I do have a story. But why don't we cover what's going on, and then I can move on to whatever's happening. This week in Late Night, John Oliver talked about Alliance Defending Freedom, which is some organization that has his hand in a lot of different, let me mute the computer, a lot of different legal cases. I also fell asleep during this, so I just didn't, I saw like half of it, and I woke up about 15 minutes in. I was tired. I think I watched it on Tuesday as well. I was very tired after my leg day. Then Leslie Jones did an op-ed on The Daily Show talking about people in Trump's cabinet. After John Oliver hosted, Klepper was the one who hosted the rest of the week. They went back to, I know I spoke about this either last week or the episode before, but there was a point for at least a week where it was Stewart, and then they did 3 different hosts. And now they're back to the weekly thing, because I think last week Desi was the host. Let me triple check. Yeah, Desi was the host last week. But if you go back 2 weeks, it goes Klepper, Desi, Acosta, which is crazy to me. Anyway, Klepper had on as guests, Stewart had on General Stanley McChrystal. And then Klepper had Matt Wolf, Colin McCann, and Representative Jake Auchincloss. It was an excellent week for the monologue and the desk bits, mostly because our Führer, I'm never going to get tired of saying that, is currently in Saudi Arabia, kissing the toes of the prince there, and trying to get his free plane, which is here already, I guess. But a lot of people had fun with that mobile McDonald's that they'd set up there. Moving on, I'm sorry if you're hearing a noise. I don't know what to do with part of the cable for the mic hangs down, like where it's connected, just like right here. Hold on, if you're watching the video, you're seeing that, and it's so short. I am so sorry. It is so short, connected to the on the mic end. The cable itself is fine. Actually, it probably isn't. It's an old cable. Okay, anyway, let's move on. It doesn't matter. John Mulaney did his own whole episode blindfolded. It was very funny just to see everybody's live be blindfolded. And then I was reminded, thanks to the good folks at Late Nighter, someone wrote a feature talking about how Chris Gethard did 2 episodes of his show blindfolded. I think that for Everybody's Alive, for all the good part, I will say this, there's no bad parts. I enjoy the show. It's a lot like Late Night with Seth Meyers, where I'm just here for the ride. Same thing with Chris Gethard's show. I'm just here for the ride. I just want to see what they have to do. And what I really appreciate is, you know what? I'll say this: the audience at Everybody's Live is much better than any late night audience there is out there right now. They're not clapping all the time. They're just laughing at the jokes. I like seeing people pop up. Steve Guttenberg was in this last episode. Sarah Silverman, Patton Oswalt, a very handsome doctor. And, oh gosh, who else was there? I think that was it. I'm not going to check. But it was funny to see him do it blindfolded. Anyway, but what I was getting at earlier is I think that I would love to see. Chris Gethard already reached out during like the first one or two episodes where they said get John and where he said get John an earpiece or an IFB just so he can hear the callers, because there's a lot of what's going on. They should just bring Gethard on as some sort of consulting producer, because he knows about this. He basically created this format in the style of late night show in terms of doing a live show that feels put together. Although this is a lot more put together, even though when Gethard's show went to Fuse, I think it was Fusion, and Fusion, it might be Fusion. And then eventually True TV, it had to be a little bit more put together. But bring Gethard on, bring his producers in, because the writers they have, like Fran Gillespie and the young man that helped Mulaney out, Jeremy, he's one of the writers, and Langston Kerman, they have these great people who are good at what they do. Now let's just make them better by giving them a tool that can be Chris Gethard and his people, who I'm sure, some of them might would love a job. And I say consulting producer because he can just do that over Zoom, because he lives in Jersey. Anyway, I'm done. The Weeknd popped by the Tonight Show and to discuss his movie and the album that came out several months ago. I don't think they even discussed the tour. I just watched the episode. Anyway, it was great. Oh, it's an extended interview. Oh boy. Anyway, it was good to see the Weeknd pop up and actually do something. He performed "Baptized in Fear" / Open Hearts, and he and Jimmy also went to a college graduation party. You know what? As much as I dislike segments like that, I think it's so great to see people react to seeing somebody famous. There's like these two girls in the front who, when they saw Jimmy Fallon, they died. And then when they saw The Weeknd, they died again. Anyway, this week we had people like, I'm trying to find the top. Sofia Vergara, Michael McKean, Maren Morris, who just also was on Howard Stern, and I just watched her 45 minutes there. It was a quick interview, and then she performed 3 songs after the show, and it was nice. She's a great singer, and is that album out today? It might be out next week. Dreamsicle. Desi Leidig, Blake Shelton, and Blake Shelton performed. Okay. Salma Hayek, Pinault, and then they did a bug thing with her. That was a fun thing to see her scream at the bugs and then immediately just be enamored by the bugs. Like, oh, I love the bugs. Mel B, that was pretty good. Amel and the Sniffers performed. I don't know who that was, but it seems like they're nice time. Young Mazzino and Adam Goldstein also were on the show as well. As for Seth Meyers, we had the requisite close looks, but also John Gabrus and Adam Pally were there to promote their podcasts. And if you're fans of those guys, you know how silly those guys can be. And it was just a great interview. It was wonderful. And Olivia Munn was there as well, telling stories about her mother. John Krasinski, Tony Gilroy was there. Reba McEntire, Tiffany Haddish, Leslie Bibb, and Sarah Snook and Glenn Howerton. I watch way too much late night, realizing that I've seen a majority of the things I'm talking about. On After Midnight, we had the likes of Sashir Zameda, Ed Helms, Patton Oswalt, and then it was basically like a week of the rest of that was like people I didn't know, but it was nice to see some younger folks out there like Benito Skinner, who I believe has a new show out, Mary Beth Barone, and Holmes, and then they had Bob the Drag Queen, Dylan Efron, and Tom Sandoval. Is that Tom? I didn't watch this episode, so I'm asking you a very legit question. Is that Tom Sandoval from the Scandival thing that happened last year? I don't know. Boston Rob popped up to talk about something on After Midnight, and then we had Jason Sklar, Kayla Montesero Meha, Kayla Meha, and Brandon Kyle Goodman. And it's always strange to see a Sklar without the other Sklar. And then for the Late Show, it was a packed week, for a very politically driven week. Colbert, they joked about that playing a lot. They also had Ryan Reynolds on, Representative Jasmine Crockett, and then they had Skarsgård, Father James Martin to talk about the Pope, Professor Brian Cox to talk about humans, I guess. I don't know. Nick Kroll, Emily Osment, who I believe is in some sort of show. What show is Emily Osment in? And then Bernie Sanders had an entire episode of himself, which is wonderful. And Pavement performed. Also, Alanis Morissette was there at Everybody's Live. That's who that was. And Steve Guttenberg. That's the reason why I brought that up in the first place. So it was a solid week. Kimmel was off. I did not notice until Wednesday. All right, this next part. I don't know if I talked about this. Let me go to... I did not because I held off on the story. That's right. This next one comes from, and I don't remember fucking thing about this that I read 3 weeks ago at this point. John Mulaney's Everybody's Live is just as delightfully weird in person. This is on GQ. Fraser Tharp. Fraser writes, the show thrives off its aura of fluidity and its obsession with the bizarre and ephemeral. It's more subservient to its creators' idiosyncrasies. Why are we using such big words? Than it is to any late night talk show conventions. And you know what? Everybody, the reason why I keep pulling up wonderful pieces, if not flowery, and it's so funny because sometimes I'll read something online, be it a social post or something, and publications like the New York Times or the Atlantic, and I'll think, why did they hire this person? This person is writing like a child. Or like if it's social, I go, are you stupid? Do you not use full sentences? And then I read 3 sentences here and I went, that's too much. Can we meet in the middle somewhere? Yes, I do read the New York Times and the Atlantic. But the reason why I keep pulling out pieces like this is because we have not seen a show like this, especially in late night, especially on such a big stage in a very long time. For, not a lot of people watch Chris Gethard's show, which is one of the reasons why it's off now. And then, and then between that show being on and this show now, the only other types of late night shows in the same genre, the subgenre of late night, have been offshoots of other shows. So Full Frontal with Samantha Bee is an offshoot of The Daily Show. Same thing with Last Week Tonight, an offshoot of The Daily Show. They're more or less doing the same thing. And I talk about this all the time, but when a show like Talk Show the Game Show comes out and it's something fresh, then we should all be jumping onto that, even if it's something that we're not necessarily fond of in the beginning. And also give it time. When Lily Sullivan, alternative comedian Lily Sullivan, when Lily Singh had her show, took over Carson Daly's 1 a.m. slot on NBC, or what time is it? Like 1:30, something like that. When she took over that slot, even though that show, I have a lot of issues with that show, but even though that show wasn't exactly the late night show that the Tonight Show and Late Night are, or were, or because they're still currently on. It was exciting to see a woman, and also a woman of color, in that spot on a medium-sized stage. And NBC had no idea what to do with it. In the same way, the same thing goes for Amber Ruffin's show. That show should still be on today. It had a primetime spot on Peacock, and they still did nothing with it. Not the creators of the show, not Amber and her team, but Peacock, but NBC. When you hire a YouTuber, let her do YouTube shit on that show. And that's what that second season was, unfortunately because of the pandemic, but that's what that second season was, what they were doing more YouTube style things. And then for Amber Ruffin's show, she thrives in the silly. So let her be silly. It was a once a week show. It doesn't have to run for the same amount of time as Seth Meyers' late night has to. Now CNN just renewed Have I Got News for You, and it's late night in the same way that SNL is late night. SNL is basically on the cusp of late night. I would say it's in a subgenre of late night. And so Have I Got News for You is in the same boat. But the idea is that, what was I talking about? The idea is that for Have I Got News for You, they don't have these lofty for the first time in years. Warner Brothers Discovery does not have lofty expectations for a show that's airing on a Saturday night at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. The clips that they put out there are doing well enough because it's a broadcast cable, it's a cable news, it's a cable panel show on a cable news platform. People aren't going to watch it on a Saturday night. They're lucky if they get 400,000 people, 400,000 viewers. The real money and the real play comes, and by money, I mean, it's not going to be, you're not going to be making gangbusters, but the real money comes after, on Sundays, when people tune in and see, Have I Got News for You? Oh, I love these three comedians. Oh, they also have Alyssa Farah Griffith, and they also have some book author that I like, Margaret Atwood. Couldn't think of somebody fast enough. I don't think Margaret Atwood would pop up on the show. And then you break out those clips over the next 2 days. I think that's too late, but over the next 2 days, and you share them, these nice long 9, 10, 11 minute clips, and let people have at it like that. That's why, forgetting the numbers of views, that's why John Oliver's show is so good with its social, because not they do exclusive stuff sometimes, but they also just put out the main story. The same thing for PBS NewsHour. They just put out the main story. All right, let's move on with this as Fraser's doing some stuff. Now, as Fraser writes, a truly successful episode requires more inclusive themes and maybe a more calculated lineup for assured banter. So when you have episodes that feature Bill Hader and Chelsea Peretti, and then Johnny Knoxville comes out, then everything's going to be working. The real charm here are the throw at the wall ideas that seem to pop out of Mulaney's brain, a factor no one can calculate or predict. That's very true. A lot of the funnier stuff, at least as a home viewer, because I'm sure the audience is having a nice time, but sometimes they just don't respond in the way that people at home can see that Melania. This is what happens when you watch too much late night. You get other people's names stuck in your head. And of course, I'm talking about Melania Trump. But you see it on Mulaney's face when something that he liked, like he loved, just didn't work. And I also think it's great when the writers do something really funny, really funny. Like last night, Lamorne Morris. I keep remembering things that happened in this episode. Lamorne Morris came out doing a character in a sketch in a bit that Mulaney openly did not like, and the writer Langston Kerman, who kept pitching that idea, finally took his chance to do it because Mulaney was blindfolded, and it works. The things that they do with the telescope, looking out and seeing the guys from Fish be Seinfeld, or see Steve Guttenberg looking across from his apartment window and saying, "I'm coming over." That's funny. Or Twista on this week's episode. Twista, the rapper, yes, the rapper who can rap fast, was revealed to be a really good artist. He's a really good artist, and also, I don't know if this is true or not, but he's a ventriloquist. And he did all this while wearing a grill on his bottom row of his teeth. But it works. Or the 60 Minutes style interview, as Fraser writes here, with Bubbles the Chimp, which I thought was so funny. I'm sure this is a great show to watch live, but it's really coming across at home. And I hope it's not lost on Mulaney and his team, and even Netflix, when they do things and they don't get a giant response and from the audience that's live there. This is a wonderful show, and it sits in a niche of alternative comedy with A-listers on a platform on a night where it's probably not the biggest night for viewing. And it all works. It hits so many areas that I really like. I dig this show. And I keep tuning in. That's what's important. I'm not somebody who goes, I can miss this. I can miss a Colbert episode. I can miss a Jimmy Kimmel monologue. But I can't miss this because this is fun. Not because it's only one episode, but because it's fun. I can miss a John Oliver. I can miss Last Week Tonight. I've done it before. But this is so fun. And it lives in its own moment. And when you just get themes like, are dinosaurs real? And you get to hear people call in. I've noticed they've lessened the calls, but they've completely stopped. Well, I would say they've severely lessened the not man on the street, but like the interviews on the street of just people around Los Angeles. Mostly because I don't think they have time because they have so much planned. But whatever. Anyway, I like the show. Listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where you can see me talking to famous people all the time. If you want to see a video version of me talking to famous people, youtube.com/cpluscomedy. If you want to see a video, if you want to see a video version of this show, youtube.com/cpluscomedy, as well as the other podcast, the Constitutionals podcast, which is the entertainment business news podcast, and and LinkedIn Logs, the jobs podcast, youtube.com/cpluscomedy. If you want to follow us on social media, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, C Plus Comedy. Me, at Chad Black White. Subscribe to the show to get your podcast. Thanks. Bye.